Most people don't just live in New York, they actually live above it. Right now, more than 300 skyscrapers tower over the city streets. And since 1890, 10 buildings here in the city have been the tallest in the world. Hi, I'm Mohsin Khan. I'm an engineer here in New York City, and today we're going to go over the history of the New York City skyscraper evolution. This might be the strangest building in New York. People used to be afraid of it. A century ago, crowds would actually gather here on windy days, hundreds of them just waiting to see if it would topple over. They were convinced it was going to fall down because they'd never seen anything like it. It's 22 stories tall, and this corner is just 6.5 feet wide and 25 degrees across. Not exactly standard construction. Back in those days, skyscrapers were supposed to be solid, with thick walls. Something this skinny and tall seemed like it would just collapse under its own weight, but it didn't. And that's because this building was more than just a strange design. It was a turning point. Underneath that stone, there was something revolutionary: steel. This building was one of the first to really showcase what steel can do. Without it, the shape wouldn't even be possible. Before steel, building materials like stone and wood had a major limitation. They were heavy. As you built taller, the weight piled up. This meant you needed really thick walls at the bottom just to support the upper floors. Those thick walls took up a lot of space. It also meant there was an upper limit to how high you could build. Once engineers saw the strength of steel, the sky was the limit. Thinner walls, higher floors. Before you knew it, buildings were soaring way past anything people had ever imagined, all thanks to what started with the Flatiron. Okay, so they figured out how to build taller, but how do you get people all the way to the top? 22 stories is a lot of stairs. The solution was some structural engineering. It's pretty simple: the elevator. Now, elevators weren't new, but they were terrifying. A broken cable meant a deadly fall, and nobody wanted to take that risk. Then Elisha Otis showed up, and at the 1854 World's Fair, he pulled out this insane stunt. He got on an elevator platform high above the crowd and ordered someone to cut the rope. But instead of falling, Otis's new safety brake engaged. And that was a game changer. Elevators were suddenly safe, and once that happened, buildings could be designed in a completely new way. Stairs weren't the limiting factor anymore. Steel made buildings possible structurally, but elevators made them practical for people. That's when the real race to the sky began. The Woolworth building is a great example of how steel and elevators came together. When it opened in 1913, it was the tallest building on Earth, but it wasn't just tall. It was designed like a cathedral. Take a look at this massive structure. You look at it and it's got these pointed arches, spires, all this detailed terracotta work. It looks like something from the medieval times, but it was incredibly modern for its time. The steel frame let it go higher than any building before it, and its elevators moved people faster than ever before. It was a new kind of landmark, not just tall, but iconic. For a long time, buildings were just buildings. Places for work, living, shopping, the basics. But in the 1920s, things got interesting. Height became the symbol of status, not just a way to get more space. And nothing shows this better than the fight to build the world's tallest building. Back then, having the tallest building was a power move. It got you attention, prestige. It was about being number one. That's why in the late 1920s, two of the biggest names in New York ended up in this kind of unspoken war. A battle where there are no second place trophies. There was only one winner. Everyone else was an afterthought. And this is where things got personal. In one corner, we have Walter Chrysler, the car guy. But this wasn't just another office building. This was Chrysler making a point. Something so striking, so modern, you couldn't miss it. And just a mile away, another group of developers had an even bigger plan. They were aiming for the tallest building, period. The thing is, no one realized how intense this competition would become. We look at these buildings now as architectural marvels, but back then, it was a straight-up race, a clash of egos and engineering genius, a race that gave New York two of its most famous landmarks. It's almost unbelievable that this 443-meter structure was built in just over a year, 13 months to be exact. Not only that, but the design was changed 15 times while they were building it. It started at 50 stories, then 60, then 80, and finally 102. That last-minute addition of adding a mooring mast, that was all about securing the title of the world's tallest. On the other side, the Chrysler building was pushing higher every single day. And they weren't just keeping up, they were about to pull off something nobody saw coming. See that spire? It wasn't always out in the open. While the Empire State was finalizing its design, the Chrysler Buildings team had already built a secret spire, assembled right inside. Then, on October 23rd, 1929, they surprised everyone by lifting it up, piece by piece, until it locked into place. Just like that, the world's tallest building. Well, for now at least. Because the Empire State was already planning its comeback, they'd take the title soon enough. And these weren't just two tall buildings, they were completely different styles. The Chrysler Building was a masterpiece of Art Deco, elegant, detailed, and almost theatrical in its presence. The Empire State Building was was pure function, bold, streamlined, and built to maximize height. But both of them had to contend with one major factor: zoning laws. Let me explain. See these step-back sections, these angles? They're not there just for decoration. You can see them on all the buildings from this era. Chrysler, Empire State, all of them. This wasn't just a design trend, it was a law. See, back in 1916, New York realized it had a problem. Skyscrapers were getting taller, but streets were staying the same size. And that meant that streets were getting dark, no sunlight, no fresh air. So the city made new rules. From then on, if you wanted to build higher, you had to step back the building. But those rules actually forced architects to be more creative. Some architects hated the new rule, but look at the Chrysler Building. They turned those setbacks into something amazing. And the Empire State Building took those setbacks and created something quite unique. They almost make it look like a bunch of separate buildings stacked on top of each other. It's like the architects created their own mini skyline. But if you look closely, each section had the same basic style, the vertical emphasis and design elements, and yet each part is slightly different. The Empire State Building was designed to be this massive self-contained complex, almost like a city within a city. But because of the Great Depression, it sat mostly empty for years after it opened. It wasn't until after World War II, with the economy booming, that the Empire State Building became the icon it was meant to be. From the 1940s onwards, it was the king of the skyline, the tallest building in the world for nearly 40 years, the one that defined New York. But of course, nothing lasts forever. In the 1970s, the focus shifted. It wasn't just about height, it was about smarter design. And Minoru Yamasaki, a Japanese-American architect, led the way with a revolutionary idea. To understand this design, I want you to look at these two beautiful towers, the World Trade Center. But what made them stand out was the columns. They supported the whole structure. Unlike the Empire State Building's dense internal frame, these were different. Much lighter, much stronger, and more efficient. Yamasaki essentially reversed the traditional approach. Instead of a heavy core, the strength was concentrated in the exterior walls. In addition to the heavy core, the strength was concentrated in the exterior columns. Moving those load-bearing columns to the outside actually opened up this interior space. This allowed for bigger, more open floor plans, used less material, and made it possible to build even taller. This tube structure concept is so brilliant, it's still the standard today. You see it in the Willis Tower, the Burj Khalifa, almost every super tall building. It's no surprise that each tower was 417 meters tall, 110 floors, the tallest in the world at the time. And to get to those heights, speed was essential. The express elevators went up at 1,600 feet per minute, less than 1 minute to the top. With 10 million square feet of office space for over 50,000 workers, speed wasn't just a nice feature, it was crucial. This is 432 Park Avenue, and right away you can tell it's different. No spire, no fancy top, just this pure geometric shape. Incredibly tall and incredibly thin. We're talking 426 meters high, one of the tallest residential buildings in the world. But get this, it's only 28 meters wide. It's a height to width ratio 15:1. To put that in perspective, it's as tall as the Empire State Building, but as wide as a typical townhouse. This is one of the most extreme height to width ratios ever attempted. To build something this slender, engineers had to completely rethink skyscraper design. Most skyscrapers rely on a steel frame with a dense core and internal columns. But 432 Park Avenue completely abandons that approach. Instead of steel, it's built almost entirely from concrete, and not just any concrete. This mix is rated at 14,000 PSI. That's more than twice as strong as the concrete used in typical skyscrapers. And here's the real innovation. The structure is the facade. Those massive square windows, it's not just for views. The whole building acts like a hollow tube, a rigid concrete shell that carries almost all the load. This means no internal columns, just wide open floor space. That's why the apartments feel so different. Nothing interrupts the view, just windows and sky. But there's one problem. A building this tall and thin acts like a giant sail. And in New York, all the way up there, winds can reach 100 miles per hour. So how do you stop a 1,400-foot tower from swinging like a tree in the storm? With two brilliant engineering tricks. Every 12 floors, you'll notice something unusual. Entire floors left open to the air. These are called wind floors. They act like vents letting air pass through instead of pushing against the tower. It's like poking holes in an umbrella instead of finding the wind. You let it move through. But even with those wind floors, 432 Park still sways. And if you're living on the 96th floor, you'd still feel it. That's why they install something you'll never see, a two-mast damper. Think of it like a giant pendulum. When the wind pushes the tower one way, the pendulum pushes it towards the other, balancing everything out. It's the same technology used in Taipei 101 and the Shanghai Tower, except here it's hidden. 32 Park Avenue changed the game. Before this, super talls were either massive steel structures or heavy concrete buildings, but this proved that slender, ultra-luxury towers were possible. And it didn't stop there. Engineers took the idea even further. The world's thinnest skyscraper, Steinway Tower. These ultra-thin towers changed New York's skyline forever. Some see them as symbols of progress, engineering marvels pushing the limits of design. Others see them as just class trophies casting long shadows over a city that's still struggling with housing. So what's next? Do we keep building higher vertically, or is horizontal the new trend? That's it for today. Until next time.